Southwest Florida's newest game in town brings you all the NFL action that you're asking for. Lloyd and Kevin have all the news, updates, trades, and rumors from the NFL. Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on Sports Radio 102.9 The Game starts now.
Lloyd Vance's Insider Football is back for another week on 102.9 The Game and a Coastal Sports Network. So glad everybody could join us. I'm Lloyd Vance, veteran NFL writer, and I'm here with my tag team partner, Kevin Midgette. How are you doing this evening?
What's going on?
Yeah, it's exciting time. We are starting to get news trickling in around the National Football League. It's mostly training camp, and everybody's in the best shape of their life, and hope springs eternal from Carolina all the way to Seattle. So the thing is, though, most of the news coming in is either holdout related, or injury related at this point in the season. So we had some movement. You and I had talked about it last week. Two quarterbacks got the bag. They get paid. Wanted to get your comments on this. The Packers pay Jordan Love, their quarterback, to give him a 4-year extension, $220 million, $75 million signing bonus, and he's going to have an average of $55 million per season. This guy's only been in the league a couple of years, and he's paid right now. He's the highest paid quarterback in the National Football League.
They had to get that done. The money is not even the aspect of it right now, because that's going to be higher as we go down the road years to come. The way that team finished, the surge that they went on with all that momentum coming into this season, if they would have had this drag out and get ugly in any ways, you would have sucked the air out of that whole locker room. They had to take care of Jordan Love, and they had to do it now.
Yeah, it's just the world that we live in National Football League, and a lot of people say, "Oh, I can't believe the amount of money they're getting, et cetera." But it's not as bad as basketball or baseball. Think about Shohei Ohtani. I mean, he's probably the first $1 billion player in baseball almost, and you never begrudge these NFL guys getting their money, because the thing is, their contracts really are not guaranteed. A lot of the back end of these contracts are monopoly type money, where their team is just putting it on paper, and then they're going to get out of it before the whole contract lives through. So good for Jordan Love. He gets the money, gets his chance to be one of the elite quarterbacks in the National Football League. We're going to see if he's able to take that next step forward. That's a very tough division. I think we may have already previewed it, the NFC North. I fully expect that the Bears are going to be a little better this year. The Lions, obviously, are the NFL's darling, and they should continue their winning ways from last year. And then we'll see about the Vikings. So the other quarterback that got paid, Kevin, was Tua Tagovailoa, the Miami Dolphins. Now, this one, I was like, is he really worth it? And I wanted to get your opinion on it. 4 years, $212 million extension. His average is going to be $53.1 million. $167 million guaranteed for Tua. And I just think right away, yeah, is he really over the concussions? Is he going to be healthy? That's a lot of money to give him.
Is he worth that amount of money? The answer, real short and simple, is hell no, he's not worth that money. There's not a chance that man's worth that money. He has no shot of playing all 4 years of that contract. I'll eat my hat if he plays 4 years of that contract. But once again, we don't begrudge people on this show. Get your money to it, that's fine. But is it a smart contract? Probably not. Probably not in the long run.
Yeah, it's Stephen Ross's money. He's the owner of the team, and it's up to him, But this is the world we live in, where I think he's a middle of the road quarterback. Everybody always asks me, is he top 10? No, I don't think he's top 10, and I don't think he's worth that amount of money. I didn't think Trevor Lawrence was worth that amount of money. He got it. And as we look at the contracts, Patrick Mahomes is probably around the 9th, 10th highest paid quarterback in the National Football League, but he keeps winning all the Super Bowls. And these other guys, yes, they got their money, but they're not winning. So we'll see how this equates into the season. And we'll pivot here on Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on 102.9 The Game, Coastal Sports Network. The other thing you got to talk about this time of year, Kevin, is injuries. Nick Chubb is trying to come back with the Cleveland Browns. They say he's good. He's probably going to be ready near latter part of training camp. Remember, he had that devastating ACL, MCL, PCL injury where he went down in a heap. And do you think he's going to be able to come back? And what type of player do you think he's going to be this season if he's able to?
Nick Chubb is one of those guys you have to ask yourself, does he have it in him to maybe pull it back a notch, not maybe be everything at a 10, to be more smart, to go down in certain situations instead of trying to extend the play? I think the Cleveland Browns have to be very careful how you deal with this man right now, because another injury to that knee, that's catastrophic. That could end the man's career. I think you need to ease him back in, and you just have to be mindful of how long he's been in the game. You have to get Ford out there. You have to get some other looks from other guys, but they got to keep a huge eye on him, and we'll see if he can progress as the season goes on.
Yes, and that was a devastating knee injury. Reminded me a lot of the Patriots. Robert Edwards way back in the day, he got hurt at the Pro Bowl in the beach football game, and he just was never the same. He was able to come back, but once that knee just got damaged, he just was not the same player. Same thing happened with Todd Gurley. A lot of people are saying Todd Gurley could have been an NFL all-time leading rusher for the Rams, and he just never came back from his knee problems, and his career ended very quickly before he was even 30. So we wish the best for Nick Chubb, but that's definitely something we got to keep on. One more preseason story we'll talk about before we jump into our show topics for today. This one definitely is monitoring. We talked about this earlier. One of the quarterback battles, and we'll talk about two of them. In Denver, Bo Nix is taking the first string snaps. It looks like he's going to be the rookie starter for the Denver Broncos. Not that it matters. It's Jarrett Stidham. Zach Wilson is his competition. So, who's really the quarterback there in Denver? But what do you think about Bo Nix taking the starter reps in the Rockies?
I think they will give him every single opportunity to win that starting job. He's a first-round pick. You want it for your fan base. They want to see him on the field. No one wants to see Jarrett Stidham on the field. Zach Wilson, you might have something in him. I don't know. He's like a scratch-off ticket, when you're cashing out, getting gas and everything. If you get something off it, so be it. If not, you took a gamble. But Bo Nix will get every opportunity to show what he can do to be that number one quarterback.
And quite frankly, Sean Payton needs him, to step up, because they traded for Sean Payton with the Saints, and they gave him all that money, and the pressure's on him to be that guru that the Broncos paid him to be. The Walton Penner Group, the owners of Walmart, definitely want him to step up and kind of lead this team. But that's a very difficult division. That's actually a division that we are going to preview this evening, the AFC West. Later on, we'll bring Nate in and we'll preview that one. That's going to be fun. But when I look at their situation, the Broncos seem to be looking up at a lot of those teams. Going to be interesting to see how that plays out. So this week, Angel was like, let me know what topics we're going to talk about. And there were a couple things that jumped out to me that I wanted to go over. We're going to have the top defensive units. We did the offense. We got to give the defense some love eventually. But I wanted to talk with you about guys that need to step up around the National Football League. And, you talk about contracts and the pressure that they bring, but there's just some players, they may have coming off injury. They may have had a disappointing season last season and, dreaded expectations around them. So I'll start with a conglomerate of players, and this is the Philadelphia Eagles, Georgia Bulldogs. They all have to step. Their defense, they build it around these players. So that's nose tackle Jordan Davis. That's Nolan Smith, who was a first rounder, by the way. Everybody forgot that last year. Jalen Carter. And then you have Nakobe Dean. So all four of those guys, former high draft picks by the Philadelphia Eagles on defense, they have to play better for this unit that finished ranked 30th around the National Football League. Particularly, I'll call out Nakobe Dean. He just, talking about injuries, he's just never seemed to be the same player in the NFL that he was in college after his injury. And now he's running on the second team behind Zach Braun, who they brought over from the Saints.
I think out of those Georgia Bulldogs, you got two good players in there. I think Nakobe Dean, he can't stay healthy. He's just one of those guys at this point, he's just snake bit. Jordan Davis, he's the one. You want to see how he can play for a whole season. If he has enough, if he has some inner strength to sit there and be in shape and sit there and put the work in to sit there and not be gassed by week 8. And Jalen Carter, I think he just ran into the rookie wall. I think that's what hit him more than anything. And I'm excited to see what he can do this year.
Yes, and Jalen Carter, I think he will have a better season because I think you and I were talking like the first 8 games of last season. He looked like the defensive rookie of the year, and he was just dominant. Kind of hit the wall. Jordan Davis, he's lost some weight. Maybe he'll be ready to play at least 2 to 3 downs. He couldn't even play like 1 down consistently in a series. So they need him in the middle of that line because we talk about that defense and the difficulty that they had. Nolan Smith, you definitely have to remember to talk about him because they need him on the outside in terms of pass rush. Hassan Reddick is now with the New York Jets. Yes, they brought in Bryce Huff from the Jets, but Nolan Smith has got to step it up. He was a late first-round pick last year, and I think he had maybe 1 or 2 sacks, so they need something from him. I'll keep going. I'll name another one, and you can kind of chime in here. Josh Allen, I think he has to step it up this season from the Buffalo Bills. A lot of pressure on him. They get rid of Stephon Diggs. He has his contract situation that probably extend him soon, so he'll get that $50-some million plus. But he's got to cut down on his interceptions and lead this team. And he's got to prove that they can catch the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens in the AFC.
I agree with you with Josh Allen. I think he has to step up. And one of my guys I think also needs to step up ties into the Josh Allen thing. I think Justin Herbert needs to step up. He also lost receivers this offseason. But last time I checked, when Mahomes was winning Super Bowl, he didn't have all-pro wide receivers for the most part, besides Travis Kelce. New England, when they were winning Super Bowls, they weren't sitting there besides one Randy Moss year that they lost the Super Bowl. Tom Brady won without these exceptional wide receivers. Josh Allen and Justin Herbert, if they are these quarterbacks, they should be able to win and do well without having the name brand.
Yeah, and then I totally agree with you, and there are playoff expectations on them. So their fan base all around the National Football League, people want to see if they're at that level, especially Herbert. Now that, everybody said it was always Brandon Staley and that defense could not hold the lead. They always lost all those games, 8 points or less, last second field goals and everything. Harbaugh's going to bring a defensive-minded run approach to that Chargers team, a toughness, and that's what they need. But Herbert, as you were saying, everybody talks about him leading the NFL early on in his career, throwing for over 5,000 yards in the season, and he puts up those big numbers, but he's got to be the leader of this team. He's got to step forward, and they have a lot of names on that team, in terms of draft capital, especially on defense. And I'm just going to be interested to see what he can do, but I definitely agree with you. Go ahead. Do you have another one you want to go over?
I do. Once again, and these two are kind of handcuffed to each other as well. It's two guys that have put up borderline, definite all-pro numbers, fringe Hall of Fame if they can keep it going, is you have Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley, two guys that are going to two high-profile teams right now that have Super Bowl expectations. These guys now have to be able to be on the big spotlight, the big stage. I know Barkley's been there before with the Giants, but those Giant teams were not expected to win Super Bowls. These guys have to step up in the big time and show what they're worth at this point.
Yeah, there are two good ones there, Kevin. I did have Saquon Barkley on my list. And last year he did not rush for 1,000 yards in 17 games for the Giants. So he's got to prove that he's healthy. He played only 14 games for them. And the Eagles need a running attack. They need to make sure that Kellen Moore needs to lean on that running game more. Last time, I thought that they did not use DeAndre Swift enough last season, and he's going to get his opportunities. He is 27 years old. We saw on Hard Knocks that the Giants did not want to lose him, but the Eagles think they're getting a frontline guy, and hopefully he can take the pressure off of Jalen Hurts because I know Eagles fans are hoping for that. Derrick Henry, a very interesting one that you just named there. Definitely he's going to have to step because it's a new environment. He's 30 years old. He has a lot of carries on his body. But he's going to the Ravens team that has led the NFL in rushing the last 2 years. So he's going to get his opportunities. But the big thing with him is health. So I know you're down there in the Mid-Atlantic region. What are you hearing in terms of Derrick Henry in camp? Does he look healthy? Does he have that burst that everybody's talking about in training camp? What do you think?
I think it's all fluff propaganda at this point. It's like they're all putting all the positivity out for everyone. They're not going to say he looks washed and cooked at this point, They want everyone to be positive about the season. But once again, if he's healthy, that's one guy. If he's in a game, it's that Marshawn Lynch quality. It's like give him the ball when he's in there because he's giving you 110%, whatever he has left in that tank. And chances are it's better than anything you're going to have on your bench, that's for sure.
Definitely. And it seems like we're always talking about quarterbacks in terms of stepping up, Kevin. But I'm interested to see in Pittsburgh, which quarterback is going to step up. Is it going to be Russell Wilson, the veteran, or is it going to be Justin Fields, the young quarterback who struggled kind of with the Bears, has dynamic talent? And it's interesting because I almost brought up in our news and notes section, Russell Wilson has had this calf injury, and he's really not been taking reps. And Justin Fields, I'm hearing that he's, like you were saying, training camp rhetoric. But I'm hearing Justin Fields putting some pressure on him, looking good with all his throws. And which one of these quarterbacks do you think is going to step up?
We talked about it on a previous show, and I think both of them will start at some point during the season. I think Russ is playing the veteran card here, where it's like I don't need to bust it that hard in training camp. I'm going to sit back and relax a little bit. Let the young guy take all the reps right there. And Pittsburgh not only has a question with their quarterbacks, who's their lead running back now? Because Jalen Warren got a lot of love at the end of last season with Najee Harris. So they're kind of in flux with those two as well, running the 1-2 punch. Who's going to be the lead come fourth quarter?
And interesting as you bring Arthur Smith over from the Falcons, we've talked about over and over again his ineptness in terms that he was supposed to be this offensive genius. And last year, the Falcons offense just struggled with him, and now he's coming to Pittsburgh. So we'll see how that unit does. I'll give you one more of my break guys that need to step up. Stephon Diggs. He got traded to the Houston Texans. He was kind of a locker room problem in a huddle, yelling at Josh Allen with the Bills, kind of a malcontent. And now he's going down here with C.J. Stroud, who was Rookie of the Year, and they have all this firepower all over the place. Are there going to be enough balls for everybody in that Texas offense, and can Diggs step up for them?
Another topic that we talked about on a previous show, everyone's all buddies when you're winning. Nobody cares. Hey, we're winning the game. That's all that matters. They start losing a bunch of games. Where's the ball at? Why am I not getting it? I think it's imperative that C.J. Stroud from jump lets him know that this is my team, and you're not going to talk to me like that. And I know it's tough for our young guy to do to a Pro Bowl wide receiver, but I think that's one of the things he has to do right away.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting there. And let's see, this one's interesting because this guy, we talk about his contract over and over again. It's all about Tim, and it's kind of hamstrung his team. Deshaun Watson with the Cleveland Browns. It gave him all that guaranteed money. I think it was $267 million guaranteed. And through the whole NFL salary cap structure in a spin, can Deshaun Watson step up, or is it going to be Jameis time? Jameis Winston's the backup there with the Browns.
Deshaun Watson is one of those guys you also cannot see playing 17 games. He's going to miss some time. Jameis is going to get some run. And you saw what Flacco did last year when he got there. It's like, dumb it down, don't turn the ball over, and with that defense, you got a shot to win. Now, the problem is, you don't have Nick Chubb for the whole season. They didn't have him at the back end of last season when Flacco was making his run. But it's basically run the ball, hit the short routes, don't turn the ball over. And they went and acquired from Denver, the wide receiver, Jerry Jeudy. They went and got him, and you got Cooper, Njoku. I mean, as long as they play within themselves, they're going to be competitive with that defense.
Yeah, before we bring Nate in here, Kevin, do you have any other guys that think could step up?
I got one more. The pride of Cal Berkeley, Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, jeez.
Let's see what he can do with this last year. It's all the hype, and then the injury. Then we had to wait another year talking about Aaron Rodgers, who still hasn't played, feels like, in forever. And he's already getting arguments with the offense on the field in training camp. And it's one of those things. Let's see what he has left in the tank, because this is it. If he comes out, once again, I hate to use the washed, cooked phrase, but we're going to know by week 8 if he has anything left in him.
Yeah, and Kevin, let's not forget, Aaron Rodgers is going to be 41 pretty soon. And, you just wonder, is he going to be able to – everybody thinks Tom Brady was able to do it, win a Super Bowl at that age. But I just wonder how much he has left of that Achilles injury. He only played 4 snaps. Everybody was all excited last year. Hard Knocks, biggest story. Now all the pressure's on him. And his head coach has got to step up as well, Robert Salah, and the general manager as well there, Daniel. So, it's going to be interesting to see if they can survive. And that's a very tough division as well. We talked about Buffalo, we talked about the Dolphins, and the Jets. It's going to be interesting to see, can they hang on and get one of those 7 playoff spots in the AFC. All right, we're bringing Nate back in, our intern, our young commentator from Misericordia University. So we're here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football on 1029 The Game, the Coastal Sports Network. Glad everybody could join us this evening. And we're bringing Nate in because we're going to talk about, Kevin, quarterbacks we think are ready for a breakout. So, we always kind of keep it kind of fantasy football centric sometimes. And let's talk about which quarterbacks we think are going to break out this season. Nate, I'll let you start with your list.
Yeah, the first guy I got is Kyler Murray. Last year, he was coming off the ACL injury, and he looked good in his games back. You saw the team was struggling, and then when he came back, they won about three or four games. He had good numbers while he was playing. Like I said last week, he brings in a number 1 wide receiver, and I think that you saw what he could do before his injury. Before his injury, they were a playoff team the 1 year in a wild card. I know they got bounced pretty quick by the Rams, but he was leading this team to 9-10 wins every year, and I think that he could get back to his former form, what he was doing before his ACL injury.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Nate, I love you to death, but you are the president of the Kyler Murray fan club. you love some Kyler Murray. I will give you that. I tell you what, it's nothing but up from that team right now. So anything he does is going to be a bonus to what they had before his injury and everything else. So, I mean, yeah, he's got a shot. That team can't regress, I'll put it that way for the most part. So, yeah, Kyler Murray, why not?
Yeah, Gannon's done a nice job with this team building it, and we'll see what they can do now. Murray's coming off of ACL in December. Seems pretty good, healthy. You have Harrison, you have Michael Wilson there, Trey McBride. But they only scored about 19 points per game, so a lot of work to do with this team. But as Kevin said, nowhere to go but up for the Cardinals. And it's going to be fun to see if Kyler can, I know he's going to put big fantasy numbers, but he's going to have to translate into real football. Go ahead, Nate.
All right, yeah, my next guy I got is coming off a bad season. Everybody's ripping him. He just got the big new contract. Trevor Lawrence. Last 2 years ago, I should say, you saw what he could do leading his team to the playoffs. He started off the first half of the year not very good, and then you saw towards the back half of the year in the second year, you started to see something why he was the number 1 pick. You started seeing him get efficient looks for his wide receivers and just completing a lot of his passes with the big plays that he provides too. And then they go in the playoffs. They have one of the greatest playoff comebacks of all time against the Chargers. He didn't play very good in that game, but like the story of his season that year, he had a way better second half. He threw about 3 touchdowns, leading them back, and then they lose to the Chiefs. And then last year they start off the season, they're 8-3. They're competing for the 1 seed. He gets a high ankle sprain against the Bengals on Monday Night Football, and then from there on, their season just went downhill, and so did his play. So I think once he come back from off that injury this year, I think that he's going to have a big season. He has the best team that he's had since he's been there, roster wise, defense and offense. And if they brought in a couple of big names on the offensive line, like Lloyd Cushenberry. If they can protect him, I think the Jags will be right back in the playoffs like they were 2 years ago.
Yeah, I'm with Nate on this one. I'm probably bigger on Trevor Lawrence than you are, Lloyd. I think he's still going through the maturation process of playing in the NFL, and I think he's developing. But once again, he's at that level where he has to take that next step. And can he take this team deeper into the playoffs?
The fun thing with him, the pressure's on Trevor Lawrence as well as Trent Baalke, their general manager. And then you have Doug Peterson trying to live up to the pedigree from when he won a Super Bowl with the Eagles. So a lot of moving pieces here. I do like Christian Kirk with him, Ingram at the tight end position. So they do have some playmakers there. Jacksonville will help them out. But it's going to be fun to see if this team can overcome that swoon from last year, because they kind of stumbled down the stretch, and they're going to have their opportunity. So, yeah, Nate, they're 2 good choices. I'll give you my 2. The first quarterback, I just think he's ready for a breakout, and he's a rookie. Is Washington Commanders quarterback Jaden Daniels. Now he was just spectacular in college. Last year he threw for 40 touchdowns, only had 4 interceptions. Now you could say, okay, they out athleted everybody at LSU, but with Washington, he's going to have Cliff Kingsbury, and this is another team. Terry McLaurin and Austin Eckler. There are some weapons around him, so I think he's going to be able to have some impact there, almost like RG3 did in 2012. What do you guys think of Jane Daniels?
Go ahead, Nate.
I think Jaden Daniels is going to have a good season, but CJ Stroud last year, a lot of people think that rookies this year are going to be able to do what CJ Stroud did last year just because it was last year. It happened recently. But a lot of rookies, they come in and they struggle early. And it's to be known that a lot of these guys will struggle and a lot of them won't have a good season. But Jaden Daniels, I feel that besides Caleb Williams in this draft class, he went to the best situation possible. They have a decent wide receiver core. Their O-line isn't very good, but they brought in Austin Eckler. They have Brian Robinson. So he has a good offense around him to distribute the ball to everybody in that offense. And with his running upside too, he'll be able to make plays with his legs. So yeah, I think he's going to have a pretty good season.
Kevin,
I agree. Actually, I think Jaden Daniels he landed in the spot with the best personnel around him to succeed. The only thing I worry about Jaden Daniels is he going to take off too much instead of letting a play develop? And that's the only thing if he starts to run too much. And I think that just comes gradually with learning the game, learning the different schemes and the speed of it as well.
Yeah, and he does have to watch taking hits because he is a slender quarterback. And last year he did take a lot of sacks in college. That was one of the things one of the scouts I talked to said he was holding on the ball a little too long, trying to be some hero ball sometimes. So you can't do that in NFL. He's got to live to fight another play, but definitely think Jaden Daniels will have a big season for the Washington Commanders. My last breakout quarterback, and Kevin and I talked about him a little bit earlier, is Jordan Love. He just got the bag, $55 million per season. But when I look at the Packers, they were the youngest team in the playoffs last year, and they still put up some pretty dominant effort. And they also scared the Niners a little bit. So with all the weapons he has around him, Christian Watson, Dobbs, Jaden Reed, who's kind of a gadget guy, and now they're bringing in Josh Jacobs. I think that we're going to see the sky's the limit for Jordan Love. Last year, in the last 8 games, 18 touchdowns, only 1 interception.
Yeah, Jordan Love's a good pick. I mean, the key for him is can he do it for a full season? I mean, last year was his first year as a starter, but you saw the growing pains that he had. He was struggling. I remember watching the game on Monday Night Football against the Raiders. I mean, he was just terrible. And then you see him start to turn around the Chiefs game. So I think he's due for a big season. Matt LaFleur is one of the best offensive minds in the game. He's every year having success with the team. So yeah, I think he's going to have a great season this year.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of pressure on him, especially playing in Green Bay. Green Bay is one of those teams that it doesn't matter what sport it is. Like the NFL loves when Green Bay is good. The NBA loves it when the Lakers and Celtics are good. Baseball loves it when the Yankees are good. Everyone has their thing. So for Green Bay to actually be a competitive team of this nature, he's got to carry that around. He's got to carry that big wallet around, and now he's got to carry the expectations around. So we're going to see, how much of this he can handle at his young age.
Definitely, and we're talking breakout quarterbacks for the 2024 season here on Lloyd Vance's Insider Football. I'm joined with Kevin Midgette. Follow him on X at Philly Kevin. Follow me at Lloyd Vance, and then follow Nate as well on there. What's your handle, Nate, on X?
I don't even know. I'll get it for next time, though.
Okay, it's at Nate 0817, I believe it. So, but keep us all check us all out. Also, check out all the folks on Coastal Sports Network at CSN Florida. Get on X. So, thanks for everybody joining us. We're talking about breakout quarterbacks now. Kevin's going to give us a couple on his list.
All right, I have 2. The first one's going to be Anthony Richardson. After playing an injury-filled rookie season, he's coming back with a team that has expectations to be a lot better than what they were, and he also has some weapons on that offense. He's a larger quarterback. He's not like Jaden Daniels, how we spoke about earlier. He's a 6'4" guy, around 250. So he's a load when he starts moving around as well. It's going to be interesting to see how he responds to that year off, basically sitting back.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Nick.
the thing with Anthony Richardson is he's just got to learn to slide, man. He's taken so many unnecessary hits last year. He kind of plays like Cam Newton. He's has the same stature and build as him. He just needs to learn to slide more, and he's going to be a great quarterback in this league. He just has to stop taking so many hits, and that's what killed him last year. I mean, he had what, like 3 injuries in 4 games. I mean, it was just brutal to watch him get hurt every single week. So as long as he plays a little bit smarter, he should have a really good season.
Yeah, that shoulder injury was kind of devastating and ended his season, obviously. And I know the Colts are excited to have him back. And it's Steichen's going to move him around and hopefully do a lot of stuff that he did with Jalen Hurts when they went to the Super Bowl together with the Eagles. So I agree with you. As long as he's healthy and Quentin Nelson and the guys up front are keeping him clean, they got to lean on Taylor first running the football, but I like Pittman a lot at the receiver position. So, yeah, I definitely like that pick of Richardson.
And I have one more, and it pains me to say it, and I'm saying it part in jest and also part possibly it might actually happen. Dak Prescott goes big this year. Running game is non-existent for the most part. Dak's going to sling that ball out there trying to get a paycheck while the old man in Texas is still there and with us.
Wow. And make sure Angel's recording this because you got Philly Kevin talking up a Cowboys quarterback. Angel's like, no, no, no. But you know what?
I don't root for it.
I kind of agree with you that he needs a big season and he could have a break. Now, last year he did lead the NFL in touchdown passes. And I would say he's empty calorie Dak. A lot of times it's end of games and against inferior opposition. They're putting up big stats. I think they scored 71 weeks, 60. Dallas, I think it was on Broncos. So, he's going to get his chances. And the thing is, they got to pay him. They got to pay CD Lamb. But I think he's going to get paid, but not by the Cowboys. And he's going to probably get $60 million per season. So if he wants that $60 million per season, he should have a breakout. Go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, he's like you said, he's playing for a new contract, so I think he's going to have a really big season this year. But you look at the schedule this year; it's a lot tougher than last year. They were playing a lot of bad teams at home last year, and he was just killing them, putting up like my empty calories, like my dad was saying. So this year they're going to have a lot tougher schedule, so it's going to be on him to have a big season and lead them back to the playoffs.
Jared's got to get out that paycheck, like Kevin was saying. He's been lunching. He decided he was the general manager of this team, and he does not sign Micah Parsons. He hasn't signed Dak Prescott. He hasn't signed CD Lamb. So he's got some big paychecks to write out soon. And I think in the end, he's only going to be able to sign 2 of the 3. I was just talking to somebody down in Texas, and he was saying that Dak probably be the odd guy out because CD is just such a spectacular player, and Micah, they had to have that rush in. So it's going to be fun to watch that. And I know the Philly people are not, they're like, whatever, as long as Dallas stinks, they're happy. And you wonder, can Dallas be relevant again, Kevin? What do you think in terms of that? Can they be relevant? It's been so long since it seems since they want to play. Well, they want to play off one playoff game in like the last 5 to 10 years, and they haven't been to the Super Bowl in forever.
I think the way that they're orchestrated right now with their front office, they can't win. They basically, and I'm not saying this in a bad way for him to, Jerry Jones just needs to step down. I don't want, and still be alive, don't get me wrong, but that man needs to step down. They need to get some football people in there to run that organization. But as a Philadelphia sympathizer on my end, I'm cool with it, man. Let the old man make all the calls. I'm still mad that his son didn't let him draft Johnny Manziel. I was like, that's a great idea, Jerry. You should have drafted him.
Yeah, it's crazy. The Dallas Cowboys, it just seems every year we say the same. Jerry is, 80 to 85 years old. I'm not sure his exact age, but he's very old. And you just wonder, does he have his fastball left? And I know he's had a lot of plastic surgeries and so forth, but you cannot turn back the clock. And you're right. He needs a football guy in there. Bill Parcells, I thought, had them moving in the right direction, and then there was that power struggle, just like he had with Jimmy Johnson. He wants all the credit. He wants to get on his radio show, and he wants to be the star of everything. But it really should be about the player. So we'll see how it goes in Dallas. And we're going to shift gears here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football on 1029 The Game, Coastal Sports Network. We're going to get to our divisional preview for this week. This is going to be a fun division because it entails the Super Bowl champion, well, back-to-back Super Bowl champions in this division, and you wonder, can somebody catch them? I'll start with the lower end of this division. We kind of talked about them earlier, prepped this. The Denver Broncos. Last year, they were 8-9, was surprisingly, when I looked at record, I was like, oh, I thought they were worse. But they have a lot of work to do right now. We were talking about earlier, Bo Nix is slated to be their starter, taking first-team reps as a rookie, and then you wonder, what does he have around him? So pressure's on Sean Payton. I'll start with Kevin first. What do you think about the Denver Broncos?
I believe they will be one of the 3 worst teams in the NFL this year. I think they have a lot of holes and a lot of glaring problems. And also, one of the players that they actually have that I like, but I don't know if he can stay healthy, is Javonte Williams. He looked good, and then last year was hurt, and it's like he's one of those guys. He's a quality special player when he's healthy, but can he stay healthy? And then you have to make sure Bo Nix can get the ball to wide receivers they have as well. You got Mims and Sutton there, and I don't think he can do it at this point in his career.
Yeah, the Broncos, like Kevin was saying, it'll probably be them, the Patriots, and the Giants all competing for the first overall pick. And Bo Nix, he's not going into a good situation. I mean, they don't have a lot of playmakers on their team. Javonte Williams was good his rookie year, but he did not look explosive off that ACL injury last year that just destroyed his knee. And at the receiver position, they got rid of Jerry Jeudy, who was kind of a disappointment for them, but he was still one of their key playmakers on offense. And they just don't have a lot of playmakers to surround their rookie quarterback with. I mean, Sean Payton, he's a good, proven coach, but I don't think there's a lot they can do with this roster. And they'll probably be trying to look to trade their star corner, Patrick Surtain, by midway through the season near the trade deadline.
It's going to be interesting with this team because they have a tough schedule. I look at. They're at Tampa Bay week 3. They're at the Jets week 4. They have the Ravens at the Ravens week 9. Then they fall right behind back after that at KC right after that. Cleveland on a Monday night on week 13. And then they end the season with week 16 at Chargers, week 17 at Cincinnati, and then they have a home game against KC. So it's not easy for the Broncos. And you wonder, Joe Lombardi, Vance Joseph, they're 2 good coordinators, but there's just not enough here for me to think this team's not going to be one of the lower ends. So, and I think they regressed from that 8-9 record that they had from before. So I think we're all predicting a tough season for the Broncos. Next, we'll look at the Las Vegas Raiders. Mark Davis, their owner, you know him. He's always tinkering with his team. He's trying. Came in last year as interim head coach and kind of saved his job. So what do you think about the Las Vegas Raiders? They were also 8-9 last year. Another team you wonder who's going to play quarterback for them. So go ahead first, Nate.
Yeah, I think the Raiders will be better than a lot of people think. I think Gardner Minshew, if he starts, he's like a game manager. He won't win the game for you, but he won't lose the game for you either. I mean, he's just going to be efficient. He's not going to throw a lot of picks, a lot of checkdowns. They still got Devontae Adams. I really like the running back, Zabir White. He was explosive at the end of last year. And they seem to play like really hard for Antonio Pierce. And you saw him turn around that team. That defense, when he took over as head coach, their defense was top 10 in the NFL. They got a lot of They brought in Christian Wilkins. They still have Max Crosby, so that D line is going to be very good, and they'll be able to get pressure against the quarterback. It's really all up to Gardner Minshew. I mean, I'm not predicting they'll be a playoff team or nothing, but I think they'll be right around where they were last year.
Kevin, which guy?
The first thing that popped in my head when we were talking about Dak Prescott and you were saying he's going to get paid somewhere else, Raiders make sense. The Raiders make sense after this season for Dak Prescott to end up somewhere like that. This season, though, with the Raiders going forward, I do like what Antonio Pierce has done. He's getting the most out of that team that probably anybody can. But there's only so much milk you can get out of that team. I think we're at a point right now where the AFC West is turning into the old school AFC East, where the Patriots had 6 wins in that division lined up. They might have lost 1. And I don't think the Raiders can match up in that division.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for the Raiders. Now they did finish 4-2 last year in division. We'll see how that's going to turn out for them. Obviously, Aiden O'Connell, you wonder about him. You wonder about Gardner Minshew, that battle there, but it's going to be tough. I like that they did bring over Christian Wilkins coming over from Miami. They put him next to Max Crosby. That's going to be a formidable front there, and you still have Robert Spillane, who's a tackling machine in that defense, but not enough there for me to say this is a team that's going to be a playoff contender. So go ahead, Kevin. I think we lost you for a second on the Raiders.
Just on the back end of it, I don't think they can compete with this division. They're going to hover around 500 and pretty much they're going to be in a draft position where they're not going to get somebody in the top 10. They're good enough not to be bad, if that makes sense.
Yeah, a lot like I think we talked about the Saints a couple weeks ago. There's just no man's land. You know what I mean? They compete for 9-8, 8-9. But is that, even if they got to the playoffs, they'd be bounced out right away in the wild card round. So, this is a situation where they probably got to get very bad, get that quarterback of the future, and it's going to be interesting to see how this team plays out. Mark Davis is one of those owners that does not have a lot of patience. We'll see how he moves forward. So that's the Raiders. And we're talking about the AFC West here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football on 102.9 The Game, Coastal Sports Network. Definitely check out Coastal Sports Network during the week. Pete Shepard in the morning, then Angel Martinez, the show behind him, and then Rich Q. So check out those shows as well. All right. We're halfway home on the AFC West. Now, this team, we kind of talked about the quarterback earlier, Justin Herbert, but you have Jim Harbaugh coming in here, and Harbaugh is a no-nonsense kind of coach. He's trying to bring a tough style from Baltimore. Greg Roman is going to be his offensive coordinator. Jesse Minter, 2 guys that have ties with him or the Baltimore Ravens. I think the Chargers are going to be better, but they got to make that leap into the playoffs. They got to win some close games. They lost too many games on field goals, etc. So I'll start with Kevin. What do you think about the Chargers this season?
As we spoke about earlier, like Justin Herbert has to make that breakout, that step up, winning with lesser wide receivers. On the flip side of that coin, though, is he has lesser wide receivers. And you lose Keenan Allen, you lose injury-riddled Mike Williams, who when he played was very good. And you replace it, you got the former first-round pick Quentin Johnston. You have Palmer there. You drafted Ladd McConkey as well. He's going to get a lot of targets this year. The running back situation, you have the Baltimore Ravens reclaims. You have Dobbins, you have Gus Edwards, who you're relying on. They're going to have to play the type of football where mistakes will end games for them. They can't make mistakes.
Go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, they're both it's like the West Coast version of the Baltimore Ravens over there. They brought in Hayden Hurst, who was a former Raven, Bradley Bozeman, center, who was a former Ravens. They're trying to be a smash mouth team, run the ball a lot, play good defense. And I mean, Brandon Staley, he was just a terrible coach for them the past 2 years. They were 3-6 last year in 1-score games, and he was just losing them games. The roster is really talented. They have a lot of more guys. So on the defense, they have a lot of big names like Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack. And I mean, if Jim Harbaugh can instill his culture that he had at Michigan here, they should be a good back in the playoffs, definitely, and a good team to compete against the Chiefs.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with you that this is Baltimore West because Joe Hortz is their general manager. He's also a former Ravens personnel guy. So they're bringing all those Ravens guys over. I guess they're trying to for another hardball Super Bowl like we saw back in the day when it was the Niners versus the Ravens. We'll see with this team. I want to talk about their defense in terms of Chargers. They have Joey Bosa there who just can't seem to stay healthy. Was a high round pick. You have Khalil Mack, who they had a little resurgence, Asante Samuel Jr., Derwin James, who's one of the highest paid safeties in the NFL, and he's got to step up. So lots of names, as you both were saying, on this team, but this team has to make that leap forward. They got to make the playoffs, and they have to push the Kansas City Chiefs. I know they got those Chiefs games circled on their schedule. Week 4, it's a home game against KC, and then they're at Kansas City on Sunday Night Football, Week 14. Down the stretch, this may help them. Week 16, they have Denver. Week 17 at New England. Week 18 at the Raiders. So maybe they can make a late push and get in there. Remember, 7 teams make the playoffs. But I think we're all saying they have to make that leap forward. But I don't think they're going to catch the next team. And this is the Super Bowl champs. I always remember back in the day, they had the Dallas Cowboys back to back in the house, and they were trying for 3. Well, now it's the Chiefs' turn, and they're trying to get it done. You have Patrick Mahomes, you have Kelsey back for another season. Last year, they showed they had some dents in their armor of finishing 11-6 in the regular season. They had to go on the road in the playoffs, but they proved going to Buffalo, to Baltimore, that they could win on the road, and then they got past the Niners in the Super Bowl. So the Kansas City Chiefs, are we thinking that they're still the kings of the mountain, and what do we think in terms of this season for them? Kevin, go first.
I keep flip flopping on the Chiefs from week to week at this point. They're the team until somebody knocks them off, and there's nobody in that division that can knock them off. That's their division. Might as well put the little X and Y and Z or whatever next to it right now. They're going to be locked up. The thing is, can Buffalo, can Cincinnati, can Baltimore, can some of these other teams prevent them from going to the Super Bowl? And that's huge for those 3 franchises because they really haven't been able to do it, as we've seen. Joe Burrow, I think, has the best shot and most confidence against that squad.
Yeah, I mean, there's just no reason to pick against them. Like earlier when they started their Super Bowl dynasty, they didn't have a very good defense, but you saw this past year they had the top 5 defense, and their only problem all year were their pass catchers. And then going into the offseason, they made that a priority. They signed Marquise Brown from the Arizona Cardinals, who's been a productive receiver over his career with Baltimore and with Arizona. And then they drafted Xavier Worthy, the fastest dude ever coming out of the draft, ran a 4.21 from Texas. And he doesn't get enough credit. I don't know if you guys have seen his highlights, but he's a pure wide receiver. He's not just a burner. He can run routes, and he's just an all-around good wide receiver. He's small, but he should be a good addition to this offense. And, I mean, there's just no reason to – I'm a Buffalo fan. You guys know I can't stand this team, but there's just no reason to pick against them to go back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and the Chiefs, we talked about that receiving core. They have not had a 1,000-yard receiver since Tyreek Hill in 2021. So they have to find that main guy. Last year it was interesting. Kelsey, they had all the Taylor Swift stuff hanging over his head. He picked it up in the playoffs. He had 32 catches on 37 targets, 355 yards, 3 TDs in 4 playoff games. So he and you wonder, he's getting to be, 35 years old or so. Does he have that burst still left? And interesting team. You talked about their schedule. I want to go over this real quick with you guys. They have Baltimore week 1 in the Thursday night opener. Then in week 2, they have Cincinnati. They have the Chargers week 4. They have their bye in week 6. They're at San Francisco week 7. They have Buffalo in week 11. And they have the Chargers again week 14 on Sunday Night Football. They're at the Browns week 15. Houston on a Saturday night, week 16. Pittsburgh on Christmas, week 17. And they finished at Denver. So this is a tough schedule for them. Everybody wants to see them Do you think, and because we have never seen a three-peat in an NFL, so specifically, do you think that's possible, or the odds stacked against them?
I think it is borderline impossible. There is a small chance that they can pull it off, but the odds are very much against them. That's a murderer's row schedule right there. The only thing the schedulers did right by them was give them the bye before they played San Francisco. That's a tough schedule to go through. Henceforth, they have to feast on that division. No less than 5-1 in that division they have to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's never been done before, but if anybody can do it, Patrick Mahomes can do it, and I'm picking them to go back to the Super Bowl. I think the guy, like Kevin said, the guy that has the best shot to take him down is Joe Burrow, because he just has this confidence about him that he doesn't care. He wants to beat them head to head, and like Josh Allen can't beat him. Lamar can't. Lamar always chokes in the playoffs. He seems that he can't beat him. Maybe C.J. Stroud can be on the come up this year, maybe beat him, but Joe Burrow's our only chance to beat him. It looks like in the AFC.
Yeah, and Burrow has no fear against him. He's been his kryptonite in the past, almost like Eli Manning to, Tom Brady. It's crazy because, everybody says you can't touch Mahomes as great as he is. He's best quarterback in the NFL, but I'd like to see somebody challenge him. You're starting to get a little fatigue with them. I still remember the Bulls when they were going for their second three-peat, and you're like, all right, can somebody please beat these guys? So you want to see them challenge around the NFL, and I think teams are going to step it up because, every team every year, it's just different. There's always some surprise team. Look at Detroit last year. There'll be somebody that's going to be jumping out front to kind of challenge them. So another great week. Nate, thanks for jumping on. We're going to transition. Guys. All right, man.
Good job, man.
We're going to transition here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football on 102.9 The Game, the Broad Street South Network. We're going to continue talking about top units. Now, last week we did the offensive side of the football. This week we're going to talk about defense. You got to give the defensive guys their love too. And as I started looking at the stats, I was like, man, this is kind of hard. There's some good defenses around the National Football League, and so we'll talk about our top 10 here in this last segment, and we'll have a little debate. So I'll go right down my list. Number 10, Jacksonville Jaguars. They run a 4-3 defense. Their defensive coordinator is a guy named Ryan Nielsen, and this unit last year they averaged about 21.8 points per game allowed. But they have some good names on this defense, particularly of Eric Armstead coming over from the Niners. They have Josh Hines. Allen, I think he did that just so people didn't confuse him with the other Josh Allen. He had 17.5 sacks last year. You had Devin Lloyd, who's a tackle machine. He's a former first rounder. You have Travon Walker, another former first-round pick. I think he was number 1 overall in 2022. 10 sacks, 1 fumble recovery. And their best linebacker is, I'm going to try to say this, Foyce Alonkan. Oof, that's bad, Lloyd. 174 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 1 fumble recovery. So what do you think about the Jacksonville Jaguars, Kevin?
I think Jacksonville has a very underrated defense as far as people that are closely paying attention. They don't have the household names where everyone's going to know. But those guys can lay the wood. Those guys can get after the quarterback. And they're a problem when they're out there and they're meshing well. As long as that offense can hang around 24 points or more, they're going to be very good this year.
Yeah, and they're going to be fun to watch because in that AFC South, they have some quarterbacks that they're contend with, whether it's C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson that we talked about earlier. A lot of firepower on the other side of the ball they're going to have to contain, and kind of a no-name defensive coordinator, but they've done a nice job there. At number 9, I have the Houston Texans, last year's darling in the National Football League. And everybody talks about their offense, but their defense is kind of loaded too. And it starts with their head coach, D'Amico Ryans, who was a former great defensive coordinator for the Niners. He has his buddy Matt Burke, now the defensive coordinator for them. They allowed also about 21 points per game last year. Built around defensive rookie of the year, Will Anderson Jr., He's a disruptor on the defensive line. You have Danico Autry, who came over from the Colts. This year, they're going to have Danielle Hunter. He had 16 and a half sacks last year for the Vikings. He's coming over. And then Aziz Algier at linebacker, and Derek Stingley Jr. is the big name in the secondary, who was a Pro Bowler. So, what are you thinking in terms of the Texans and their defense?
Texans at this point, the Texans on paper might possibly be on both sides of the ball, offense and defense, one of the top 5 teams in the National Football League this year. On paper. And the thing is also, a lot of these guys in the defense include, everyone talks about the pressure of the offensive guys, that the Texans are being picked to win the division and start going deeper in this playoffs. That defensive unit's going to feel it as well. And are they ready for it? Are they ready to step up to the challenge of being one of those top defenses?
Yeah, and this is another one from the AFC South. It's going to be interesting to see, can they live up to the hype, because everybody, as we said last year, they win the division, they won a playoff game, and everybody's expecting them to take that next leap forward, possibly maybe challenge the Chiefs. But it's going to have to start with that defense. I know everybody talks about that offense, but that defense is got to play their ability. They got Kamari Lassiter also coming over in the second round from Georgia. So they have a lot of name brands on that team. We'll see if they're able to continue their ascension. At number 8, this unit, they have the Defensive Player of the Year from last year, Myles Garrett. But the defensive coordinator is one of your old buddies from the 2017 Philadelphia Eagles championship team, Jim Schwartz. He's cracking heads over there. So, the Browns, they have Zadarius Smith at defensive end, Dalvin Tomlinson, who's coming off a knee injury at defensive tackle. I talked about Myles Garrett, defensive player of the year. He had 14 sacks, four fumbles. Jordan Hicks, another former Eagle who's playing very well for them, had a ton of tackles for them last year. And then their secondary's got Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, both former first-round picks. And then they drafted defensive tackle Mike Hall out of Ohio State. They averaged another team that averaged about 21.3 points per game last year. So what do you think about in terms of the Browns defense?
I believe the Browns defense might be top 3 in the NFL this year.
Okay.
That's how good they are. The fact is, they're going to have to hold teams to 17 points or less to win some games sometimes. They're going to have to be the ones where if they win the coin toss, we're sending our defense out first. They're going to lead with that defense, and whatever they get from the offense is going to be gravy. The defense is going to have to give Deshaun Watson good field position to try and get field goals, as many as he can, to sit there and win games. So I think more than most teams in the NFL, the defense is the most important thing on that Cleveland team right now.
And Kevin, that division, everybody had a winning record. So it's very competitive in that division. We'll see if they're able to continue making their steps forward. Obviously, Joe Flacco is no longer on the team. He's on the Colts. He's their backup now. Deshaun Watson, we talked about him earlier. They need to step up on the offense side, but defense, it should be their calling card. And if they can get Nick Chubb going and Jerome Ford, their healthy running back, this team should be kind of formidable. So Cleveland Browns defense at number 8. At number 7, this defense, they play that weird 4-2-5 defense that everybody's playing now in the National Football League, where they have the big nickel out there and a lot of coverage. This is the New York Jets. And the thing is, you talk about their head coach, Robert Saleh. I think he's a better defensive coordinator he was with the Niners than a head coach. I just don't know if he's the head man. They do have Jeff Ulbrich running the scheme there for him at defensive coordinator. They also allowed around 20.9 points per game. And there's just names all over this defense. You have Jermaine Johnson, a former first-round pick, 7.5 sacks. Quentin Williams, a perennial Pro Bowler, defensive tackle. We talked about Hassan Reddick. He had 11.5 sacks last year for the Eagles. They have to sign him. And then you have linebackers Mosley, the other Williams, Quincy, and Sauce Gardner, who's one of the best corners in football. So the Jets, 7 too high, too low. What are you thinking of them?
I believe that the whole Jets franchise right now is a ticking time bomb, a powder keg, if you will. Hassan Reddick's not helping matters at all. The time he misses, the temperament he's going to cause in that locker room, and the scrutiny that they are going to fall on with the media in that New York market if they get out of a slow start, with the Aaron Rodgers questions are even going to be thrown at these defensive guys. Sauce Gardner is going to get frustrated. I just see this as a bad thing that's going to happen with this Jets franchise. Do they have the talent on the field? Absolutely. Is it going to be able to get done? Don't think so.
Yeah, I think it's going to blow up. It's going to be one big soap opera. And last year they had Hard Knocks, and everybody was talking about them. And everybody talks about Aaron Rodgers, but that defense has got to step it up. They probably got to make, they got to get key turnovers to help that offense. It kind of struggles at times. So it's going to be fun to watch that New York soap opera play out there. At number 6, I have the New Orleans Saints. Their defensive coordinator is Joe Woods, kind of sneaky good. Last year, they only allowed 19 points per game. So, this unit has Carl Granderson at defensive end, 8.5 sacks. They have Chase Young, who kind of underperformed in Washington, and then he went to the Niners, and he was kind of beat up there. I do like Demario Davis in the middle of their defense. Ton of tackles, 120 tackles, 6.5 sacks for him. And in their secondary is Tyrann Mathieu, who's getting a little older, but he's still good, and Marshawn Lattimore. So what do you think about the Saints at 6?
The Saints are sort of in the same boat as Cleveland is. That team will be as good as their defense is that keeps them in the games. And especially playing that NFC South, New Orleans can win that division or at least be very competitive around 500 just with that defense alone. And once again, it goes back to put him in good field position. Don't make Carr have to do too much out there. The defense is going to be the thing that controls what they do this season.
Yeah, Kevin, it's going to be fun with the Saints. And don't forget they got Kool-Aid. They got Kool-Aid McKinstry coming over from Alabama. They drafted him in the second round, and they're going to add him to that defense. So that's going to be a fun one to watch. We're talking about top defenses here in the last segment here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football on 102.9 The Game and the Coastal Sports Network. Thanks for joining us another week. At number 5, we talked about this team earlier in our preview, and their defense is sneaky good as well. They didn't make the playoffs, but the Las Vegas Raiders, they're another team that run that 4-2-5 scheme, the big nickel. Antonio Pierce cleaned that defense up with Patrick Graham, who came over from the Giants and the Buffalo Bills. They only allowed 19.4 points per game, and they have Max Crosby, who's one of the game records with 14.5 sacks last year, and then they bring over Christian Wilkins. So what are you thinking about the Raiders at 5?
Max Crosby's a monster out there. That's a guy you have to double team him. That's going to free up somebody else. There are a bunch of hitters out there, and I love the fact with Pierce out there and with Ryans over with Houston, it's like guys who played the game, and they're going to make sure that defense is right. That is one thing you can count on. The defense is going to be in shape and ready to go. The Raiders, they're going to be, once again, all these teams that we're talking about right now, for the most part, their defense is what's going to carry them this year. They don't have killer offenses. They have to give that offensive unit shorter fields to work with. And I think the Raiders defense can definitely do that.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And a lot of guys, it's a passing league first, and they love these pinball machine type games and all that. I've always been a defensive guy. I grew up in Philadelphia, watching Reggie White and Gang Green and those guys. And there's just something when a defense takes the will out of a team. And it's just so important down the stretch. You saw that with the Kansas City Chiefs the last couple of years, their defense stepping forward to help an offense that struggled at times. So I agree with you. Defense is definitely the key and wins championships. I know I know my one son who's a fantasy football kid. He disagree with me. He's all about the points, but you got to stop somebody. At 4, in terms of top defenses for 2024, I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They play their traditional 3-4 scheme. Mike Tomlin obviously helps on defense with Terry Austin's their coordinator. And the key with them is just pressure. They allow 19 points per game. It's all based around T.J. Watt. T.J. Watt is just incredible. He had 19 sacks last year and just a game record. A guy can't be blocked. And then you have Cameron Hayward at the defensive tackle and Alex Highsmith, a guy a lot of people don't talk about, at the other rush spot. And now they bring over this season a guy you're familiar with, Kevin. Patrick Queen's coming over for the Ravens. And last year he had 132 tackles and 3.5 sacks. So talk to me about the Steelers at 4.
The Steelers might have the best defense in football. When everything's clicking and going, they might have the best. They're at least in the conversation. Henceforth, we have them at 4 right here. I love the fact with Patrick Queen and coming over from Baltimore is a sign that a guy goes somewhere else and he can't wait to play his former team twice. That guy is going to be lit up when they play the Baltimore Ravens for that rivalry game that they have between each other already. The Steelers, T.J. Watt, he's a game changer with him and Hayward right there. I mean, who are you blocking at that point when you line those two guys up around each other? Yeah, they're a problem.
Yeah, and they're going to need it because when you talk about their struggles at quarterback and the offense just not what it used to be. And they have Minkah Fitzpatrick, who's one of my favorite safeties out there. He's talking about a game changer. So Steelers, I think rightfully so, it should be a top 5, and we'll see how they play it out. But that is a tough division, as we were talking about earlier. At number 3, I came with and a lot of people don't talk about this team in terms of defense. It's the Kansas City Chiefs, back-to-back champions, and Steve Spagnuolo's unit has really led them. And think about Spagnuolo. He has 5 Super Bowl victories between the Giants and the Chiefs. So you got to put him up there. I never thought he'd be a Bud Carson type and all that. But his defensive unit led this team. It only allowed 17.3 points per game last season, obviously built around Chris Jones and his 10.5 sacks.
You got to think about it this way. We've talked before. Once again, we talk about offense, it seems more than defense. Patrick Mahomes has won these Super Bowls with lesser wide receivers, with a big tight end and a running back du jour committee for the most part. And how come they can do that? Because that defense puts them in a position to win these games, to win these playoff games, to go on the road, to shut the other team down. And they do get buried. The lead is the offense. They get buried in the back of the paper. But that defense is legit.
It's going to be fun to see if they can carry him. Obviously, the L'Jarius Sneed, they traded him away to the Tennessee Titans. So they're going to need Justin Reed and Brian Cook, some of the other guys in that secondary step up. But, Nick Bolton, the guy who picked up that fumble against the Eagles, ran it for a touchdown in the Super Bowl. He's probably one of the keys on defense as well in the middle. So very underrated group, and we'll see if they're able to step forward. So we had the Chiefs at 3. At number 2, this is a name brand defense. Everybody talks about them. I know Kevin's going to be like, oh, boy. The Niners. The Niners, the Eagles' big rivals. They run at 4-3, and they got, Nick Sorensen is their defense coordinator. John Lynch is their general manager, who's a Hall of Famer on defense. So he's built quite the unit here. You have Nick Bosa, 10 sacks. Javon Hargrave, the former Eagles there, Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner in the middle. And then their secondary is led by Ward and a bunch of other guys. So what are you thinking in terms of the Niners? They only allowed 17.5 points per game.
I think we get used to hearing in the media Bosa, like, and it doesn't matter which Bosa. The Bosa name seems to lead. Fred Warner in the middle, though, that guy's he's a player and a half. They have a defense, and I can't even begrudge them on their defense. Their defense steps up in big games. Their defense does everything you could ask your defense to do, plus more. Do they belong in the top 3? Definitely.
Yeah, and they're getting their strong safety back from an ACL injury. We'll see if he's able to step in there and help this team. But they're another team we talked about. They have a tough schedule, and we're going to see if they're able to live up to all the hype. You wonder, is that window closing on them? We talked about the Bills earlier, and a lot is similar for the Niners in terms of their defense. And losing D'Amico Ryans was kind of a big blow for them in terms of their defense. He did a great job with that unit before he went to Houston. All right, number 1, and it's right in Kevin's backyard, the Baltimore Ravens. I had to put them at number 1. And when you look at this unit, they allowed only 280 points per game last year, which was only 16.5 points per game. And there were a lot of times where they were just grinding the clock with Lamar Jackson, that leading running game, and they were just putting the defense on the field. John Harbaugh, former special teams coach, he's not afraid to punt. And he's got, Justin Madubuike and Roquan Smith and Kyle Van Noy and Kyle Hamilton, who I think is one of the best young players in football. So go ahead, Kevin. What do you think about the Ravens at number 1?
I'm disagreeing with it, but I get it. I get it. I can't have anybody hear me say the Ravens deserve to be the number one on defense. But at the same time, they play the game from a different era. They sit there and they want their defense on the field. They want their defense to beat up the other team's offense. They get the ball on their side. They run the ball. The clock just grinds down. They want low-scoring games, and that defense sets them up for that with the offense they have.
Yeah, and they'll never live up to the Ray Lewis defenses, but I mean they're a strong unit. They've been trying to draft a lot more guys on the defensive side of the ball. Nate Wiggins, they brought him in the slender corner from Clemson. We'll see what he's able to do. And Ravens have a tough schedule. The division is extremely tough. So, real quick, Kevin, is there anybody you think I missed?
As of right now, no. As of right now, if I was going to pick a team or two out, it would just be me nitpicking right now. It's hard to do before preseasons gets really fully on their way and we get out there. But let's put a pin in this. We'll revisit this in late September.
Yeah,
we'll go back to this list in late September.
Yeah, and that's the fun thing of it. They'll probably all start terrible, and they'll be like, Lloyd, that list was terrible. And that's bitten me before in my other show. But another great week here on Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on 102.9 The Game, Coastal Sports Network. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for Angel behind the glass on ones and twos. Kevin, another great week with you. And Nate Vance, our summer intern, and he's doing a great job in terms of his communications work. And next week, we'll just continue looking around the National Football League, getting you ready for the season. I think we'll be able to talk about the Hall of Fame game. I know we'll see who plays, but there'll be something to talk about. And then we'll talk about whether the speeches are too long, in the induction. So thanks for joining for another week on Lloyd Vance Inside Football. We'll talk to you later.